Hello everybody, Andy here again. For those of you who follow me on Twitter, you may have noticed that my avatar has changed very slightly over the past couple of weeks. It's got a little symbol in there. Some people were querying what that is, and just for those who are interested, it's one of these. People said, what is that? And then when I told them it was a poppy, they said, what is it and what does it represent, what's it for? So I thought I'd make a video and actually explain where the whole idea of the poppy and what it's for, especially over here in the UK, is. Because over here is seen and has been for 80 odd years now a symbol of remembrance from the end of the First World War and all the death and destruction that went on then. It's shocked so many people right across the world, but especially the deaths that happened, the untold millions of deaths that happened in northern France and in Belgium as well, the northern front as it was. That shocked so many people. It spurred the people into action. One of the things that came out of that was the Royal British Legion, who in 1921 started a remembrance organisation, Royal British Legion being there to look after active servicemen and people who fought in wars since. And we're not just talking about the First World War here, we're talking about other conflicts that have come, obviously the Second World War, but anywhere the British soldiers have fought and who are still fighting now. And this also extends to other organisations in what were classed as Commonwealth countries like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and also to a limited extent as well in America, where I believe you have an American Legion which does something very, very similar as well. But the symbol of the poppy now, I've got a little one here, a little badge here. I've got these sort of poppies you see so many people wearing on their lapels usually, and it all leads up to Remembrance Day, the remembrance of the armistice that was signed in 1918 to stop the First World War. The 11th of November at 11 o'clock in the morning we still hold a silence here, we still have ceremonies here, and we usually on what they call Remembrance Sunday, which is the Sunday preceding the 11th of November, which is the Sunday that's coming up here, and we will have ceremonies right across Britain at war memorials, etc., everywhere where people will be wearing poppies and have been now for a number of days, shall we say, and people pay money for these to put it in the collection pots, the collection tins, etc., for the ex-servicemen and in the memory of those people that died. One thing with the poppies is a lot of people don't realise that they're actually made by injured ex-servicemen. They're paper and there's a little bit of plastic on there, but a lot of people think that the reason that they are red, and the reason that we use poppies, is partly because red is a symbol that looks bloody, etc. But it's got nothing to do with that, although ironically poppies are traditionally a symbol of sleep and of death. They don't actually come from that. The story is quite an interesting one that I will relate now, and although this is a very British celebration, the way that we do this here in Britain and the amount of people who wear the poppies and celebrate and remember, the origination comes from a Canadian, and it was taken up, and the wearing of poppies was actually an American. The story as follows. In the First World War there was a Canadian serviceman serving on the northern front in northern France, a guy called John McCrae, who sadly died whilst on active duty of pneumonia when he served on the front there. But he wrote a very, very influential poem called In Flanders Fields, and I've got a copy of it here, and I shall read it out, and I'll read a couple of others because this explains a little bit about it. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from falling hands we throw, the torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. The symbolism there being poppies, the nature of poppies is that they're a weed, and where they spring up is usually where there's disturbed earth. And what happened, and you can see it right across the world now, it doesn't have to be on battlefields, but especially the mayhem that went there on the northern front there in France and in Belgium, it disturbed the earth. And what happened, but when a period of calm came, the poppies germinated, as weeds tend to do, and they grew up, and as John McCrae said in that particular poem, they covered the ground in amongst the bodies, in amongst the crosses that were laid to remember the dead. And that's one of the reasons that came. But what happened then was that an American lady called Moyna Michael, she was in America in 1918, I believe it was, and she found a copy of John McCrae's poem while she was sitting in a waiting room or something, and she read that, and the symbolism grasped her, and even before the end of the First World War, it made her think about this whole idea of remembering and commemorating all the dead from all the different countries that had died in that particular conflict. And she wrote her own poem, and it was called "We Shall Keep the Faith," and it goes back and actually answers some of what John McCrae's poem said. So I'll read this one out. We shall keep the faith. Oh, you who sleep in Flanders fields, sleep sweet to rise anew. We caught the torch you threw, and holding high, we keep the faith with all who died. We cherish too the poppy red that grows on fields where valour led. It seems to signal to the skies that blood of heroes never dies, but leads a lustre to the red of the flower that blooms above the dead in Flanders fields. And now the torch and poppy red we wear in honour of our dead. Fear not that ye have died for naught. We'll teach the lesson that ye wrought in Flanders fields. And what she did, she actually realised the symbolism of the poppy, and she made one herself. And she was given $10 by an organisation in America, and she actually made up some poppies and started selling them to people. And that's where the whole idea of it became. I think the American Legion grasped onto this before anybody else did, and then it took off, and people thought, what a great idea, because of the symbolism of the poppy, because of what had happened with the poems partly, but also because of the actual physical poppies growing on the northern front there in France and Belgium, that the whole idea of wearing one of these for an act of remembrance, an act of celebration, if you want, of the people who died. And as I said before, not just from America and from Britain, from Canada, but from every country who died as well, and for the people, as I said before, who are still dying. What did happen later on was that a white poppy was produced. Now, white poppy is a natural poppy, it's a natural colour, as is the red here, but a lot of people thought that that was sort of a cowardly way, and some people frowned on people wearing white poppies. What happened, it was generally the sort of pacifists who, although don't approve of war, are quite happy to remember and celebrate the people that have died and who've given their lives for those causes throughout the years. So if you see people wearing a white poppy, it means exactly the same as it does as a red poppy. But what happens now is another poem that came out, and I'll read it from a guy called Laurence Binyon. One you've probably heard if you've been to any remembrance ceremony throughout the years. A whole poem which was For the Fallen was the name of the particular poem. It's a longish poem, but you only ever hear a couple of stanzas, shall we say, and I'll just read you out the last bit. So hopefully that's giving you some sort of indication of why a poppy is worn and the history. Quite an interesting history, as with all these things. There's always more to it than meets the eye, and I didn't know myself that the whole tradition started in America. That's quite a surprise, because I don't think Americans tend to wear them now. In fact, one of the people who asked me why we wear them was an American. So do your research. I'll put a few links up in the sidebar, or is it down there these days, as to what it's all about. But I'll just read you the last little bit here from that poem, The Fallen, by Laurence Binyon. They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years to condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning we will remember them. We certainly will be remembering them now, up until the 11th of November, and we will be remembering them for a long time after that. As I said, the people who are giving their lives today, and all those people who've given their lives for us, after all, throughout the years. Thank you very much. Goodbye.